Part 25. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 242. Humanity is really panicking now. The flow of refugees is huge in all countries. Some strange faith organizations have appeared among the refugees, and some people have even begun to believe in metal monsters, mysterious flying saucers, and giant mosquito monsters that have appeared in the human world a few times, but behaved fairly friendly. The spread of these weird beliefs began to ferment at an extremely fast speed. By the time some countries noticed it, it was already too late. Come on, kill these stupid rulers. The metal monsters are here because of them. If they are gone, the metal monsters will forgive us humans and kill them. In a certain city in the Star-Spangled Banner, groups of people composed of people who believed in metal monsters rushed towards the official residences and office areas of the city. This is a country where guns are legal, so almost all of these people carry guns. When attacking each one, they advance and retreat in a measured manner, and they attack the rulers who have become human beings without mercy. The Star-Spangled Banner, the most powerful country on Earth, actually entered a state of chaos in an instant. The speed of things fermenting is far beyond people's imagination. In just one day, several countries declared a national state of emergency control. The people do not trust the government, and the metal monsters are approaching step by step. It seems that in the past few days, human beings have suddenly reached a point of life and death. Boom boom boom. There was a huge explosion, and a dark body made a beautiful turn in the air, and flew out of the explosion's impact area lightly. Whoosh 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 whoosh. There was almost no pause. After detonating the metal monsters behind, the giant mosquito immediately rushed towards another group of metal monsters. But some of these metal monsters are already ready to explode. The color of the gun barrels above their heads was strange. When the giant mosquito was almost close, boom boom boom. A series of red explosive light waves appeared in this world. A huge explosion was about to unfold, but before that, the body of the big mosquito suddenly spread its wings just before the explosion. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Big mosquitoes at this time. He actually caught up to the moment before the red light of the explosion burst into flames again. He directly unfolded his body, became extremely violent, and charged towards the sky. The red light of the explosion shone, but they could only kill their own people sadly. But it can't hurt the big mosquito in the slightest. The light in Jia Yanfu's eyes became even more intense. At this time, he was a big mosquito. In continuous battles, I have found some characteristics and experience of the self-destruction of metal monsters. If these metal monsters want to self-destruct, they will freeze for about a second before that. As long as I carefully observe their actions, I can see the symptoms before they self-destruct. And the more I fight with them. As far as their tactics and movement patterns are clear, the metal monsters alone don't really seem to be very intelligent. So now it's easier and easier for me to see their movement patterns. It's time to respond. Jia Yan is in the air. Looking at the metal monsters below, their compound eyes are shining. At this time, the big mosquito was already on its second day of fighting against the metal monster. Huge things happened in the Earth world the day before. He did not understand that the giant mosquito spent almost all of this day and night in battle. After discovering the self-destruction characteristics of metal monsters, Jia Yan felt that his experience had also improved to a certain extent. Finally came again in the early hours of the morning. Boom boom boom. The last metal monster had to detonate itself under the pressure of Jia Yan's attack, but before that, the body of the big mosquito had already risen from the ground against the flames of the explosion. At this time, there was already a doomsday scene on the ground, and the remains of metal monsters all over the ground were lying there one after another, seeming to tell how powerful Jia Yan, this brutal attacker, was. This is a metal monster with a number of 100. This was the first time Jia Yan had wiped out such a large number of metal monsters. His attack method was to use a few blue-gray pebbles to detonate directly in the sky when he first came to the top of the group of metal monsters, causing them to explode on the ground. After killing and injuring many of the metal monsters, he took advantage of their inability to organize and made an effective counterattack, attacking directly from below. Finally solved, there are at least 100 of these metal monsters, so now look, how much harvest they have brought me. After Jia Yan finally solved the small army of these metal monsters, his flying body seemed to suddenly breathe a sigh of relief. After fighting for a whole night, his harvest was not much at first, but he destroyed 2 small armies of metal monsters in total, and his harvest reached about 30. This time was the largest army of metal monsters he had ever annihilated. Naturally, he was looking forward to this harvest. 1, 2, 3, 4, 11, 32, 33, 33. Jia Yan looked at his harvest this time and was quite satisfied. He got more than 30 blue-gray pebbles out of a small army of 100 metal monsters. This pebble was not so easy to obtain. After all, the metal monsters need to be killed before they react, otherwise, they will not be able to get these blue-gray pebbles. Obtaining 33 at one time means that Jia Yan's total harvest has reached more than 60. Adding in the previous inventory, it is not far from the number he wants. It seems that the chance is not small. As long as I fight hard for one more day and night, I will have a chance to collect the desired amount. The big mosquito's compound eyes are shining brightly. As long as he can gather enough numbers, he can start the next mutation, and it is unimaginable how strong he can become at that time. If I develop my mutation and reach an extreme level of power, then I will always protect Shanghu. Although I don't want to help those other humans, my family is there, so I can help them by the way. Thinking of this, the mosquito's compound eyes shine even brighter. But he also knew that his idea was actually a bit fanciful. After all, the metal monster's building and the red light they emitted were indefensible to Jia Yan. If the metal monster uses that kind of light to attack him, then he has no other choice. It is estimated that this light is more powerful than the ray that attacks him, and he can only surrender. But before you die, you must protect your family. This is what Jia Yan thinks. Even though the mutation is right in front of us, the future prospects are still too bleak to see any light. Before he knew about the building where metal monsters could emit red light, before he knew about the mysterious thing, Jia Yan still felt that he was extremely powerful. Even on this earth, except for a few rare things, nothing else could threaten him. Life. But the appearance of the powerful structure of the metal monster, as well as the appearance of the thing that can emit white light, made Jia Yan feel an irresistible thought. I'll work hard as soon as possible. Although I can't say that I can catch up with the power of these things in the next mutation, I can at least have a little more ability to protect myself. Jia Yan encouraged himself. Big Mosquito continues his search for his next target, the Metal Monster Squad. These metal monsters didn't know whether they didn't share Jia Yan's information or thought that the current Big Mosquito would not have much impact on their affairs, so when Jia Yan saw the next small army of metal monsters, he still looked completely defenseless. If you don't guard against me, I will continue to attack. Jia Yan would not be polite to the metal monsters. After seeing the metal monster team below, he directly pursued them and launched his own attack. And that was when Jia Yan was still attacking the metal monster. Unknown to him, above the sky, 2 objects far exceeding the technological creations of the Earth world were approaching at high speeds in the sky. They were also in a battle, and the battle was fiercer than the battle between the giant mosquito monster and the metal monster below. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 243. White rays of light interspersed between the 2 UFOs. Whoosh! White lights shot out. The flying saucer-shaped aircraft was hit by a white light, and a little fire appeared directly on the edge of the circle. Boom boom boom. He struck the ground with a bright light. The flying stick took advantage of the opportunity and quickly pursued it in the air. But the flying saucer-shaped thing suddenly turned around in the air and actually emitted a white light at this time. Boom! This white light hit the flying stick UFO, exploding its slender body into a ball of flame. Both flying objects fell downwards while emitting thick smoke. But they still didn't stop attacking each other. White light says. These two things seem to have a life and death feud, constantly attacking each other in the air. In the city below, some humans also saw this scene. But if this scene were replaced in the past, it might be a sighting that could make the whole world uproar. But at this time, people are just afraid that those attacks will spread to yourself instead of thinking about taking a video. Whoosh! Two strange-looking UFOs were attacking each other, no longer concealing their whereabouts above human heads, but no one paid attention to their figures. After all, on the Earth now, not only these weird flying objects appear, but also Metal the Monster Army, the giant mosquito monster, and those strange spider-type monsters are all surprising things. Now if something appears, at least humans will not make such a fuss now. Preserving life is what humans think about now. After all, this is not a time when monsters are a vulnerable group and humans are very surprised to see them. If humans continue like this, from now on, monsters should be surprised to see humans. So it's not a good thing that they show up. Of course, this matter was naturally broadcast by the media, making everyone on the Earth more solemn. More and more strange things appeared on the Earth, which seemed to be revealing the world. It's about to become the end of the world. Boom 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 boom. A small bluish-gray stone hit the ground, and the soil on the ground flew up. The entire ground was bombed and dented. It created a large crater with a diameter of nearly 20 meters. The giant mosquito's body had already leaped into the air before the explosion. The red light surged, everything on the ground. They were all bathed in the high-temperature baptism and bathing. In the time after the red light surged, the big mosquito was at this opportunity. But it was already rushing towards the metal monsters below. Each of these monsters was affected by the shock wave, and some were in an extremely chaotic state. So the big mosquito at this time seizes the opportunity at this time. Kill them, that's the best time. Click. Phew. Metal monsters are in the sharp front legs of the giant mosquito. It turned into corpses that could not move. And Jia Yan's body was interspersed among the corpses. From time to time, metal monsters falling to the ground appeared in this small war zone. And this war zone, it doesn't look like a huge battlefield, but the number of deaths and injuries caused by the metal monsters can make many human armies stunned. When the human army encounters a small army of metal monsters, there is usually a huge amount of movement. However, such a large movement only causes a small amount of casualties to the metal monster. Sometimes an army of 10,000 people even fights with the metal monster. A team of 100 encountered each other, but could only cause less than half of the opponent's losses, and then their own side began to collapse. Therefore, when some media and humans saw a giant mosquito monster outside Shanghai actually fighting a metal monster, they immediately seemed to have heard some great good news and exaggerated the matter, and some articles, instead of condemning the giant mosquito monster, he vigorously advocated for the betterment of this giant mosquito race. People are such realistic animals. If you are good to them, they will be harmonious to you. However, if you feel that you are of no benefit and have no use value, then you will be trampled mercilessly. Jia Yan, who was on the battlefield, didn't know how important his affairs were to the humans in Shanghai. Because of his presence, some real high-level officials came to the city. All he knows is that there is his family in the city, and he has to take care of his family when he is promoted. So at this time, of course, he is working hard to kill those metal monsters in this place. Boom boom boom. A huge explosion sounded. This was a huge explosion caused by the self-destruction of the metal monster. However, their current self-destruction had an extremely slight impact on Jia Yan. Because Jia Yan is a big mosquito with a huge combat IQ. Although his current combat power has not increased much compared to before, he has fought against metal monsters more times. Now he has grasped some of the weaknesses of metal monsters' fighting habits very accurately, so the current big mosquito, at least for the metal monster, he already has a great way to fight against it. What is only reflected in the battle is that his combat power has soared. He can deal with ordinary metal monster teams very easily, and he is also very skilled in using tactics with blue-gray pebbles. Therefore, dealing with the small army of metal monsters is a near miss. Not long after, this metal monster team with 70 metal monsters was finally attacked by Jia Yan's series of attacks. It has become lifeless. Jia Yan is also collecting his own harvest. Since his attack methods have become more effortless, the gains this time are also huge. Out of a team of 70 metal monsters, I actually harvested 40 blue-gray pebbles. Jia Yan calculated the harvest this time and felt a little surprised. At this time, he had already harvested a lot of blue-gray pebbles, so when he calculated all his harvest, his expression immediately became filled with joy. The total has reached 120. There is still one night left before the 200 I mentioned. If you work hard, you should still have a chance. Jia Yan felt a little calmer. He has already harvested a lot of blue-gray pebbles in this place. As an intelligent creature, he naturally knows that he cannot stay in one place for too long, so at this time, he immediately plans to change places. Continue to take action. Otherwise, it wouldn't be fun if those buildings made of metal monsters would emit some red light to attack him. Jia Yan's body grew taller. Get out of this place. Yin 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 yin. The sound of flying mosquitoes echoes constantly in this world. Jia Yan's current flight airspace has reached 2,500 meters. At this time, it is not that his resistance to temperature has increased, but that this place is in the Jiangnan area, and the temperature is not as low as in the north. As a flying creature, he likes high places very much in terms of flying psychology, so he wants to fly to high places as much as possible. But for regular flying, 2,500 meters and above is his limit. If it's just about the height, he can fly to more than 5,000 meters to try, but that's not necessary, and he can't stay at such a high place for a long time. And when Jia Yan was flying at an altitude of 2,500 meters, trying to fly towards the next hunting spot. Whoosh! White brilliance lit up near Jia Yan's body. Jia Yan is very familiar with the color of this brilliance and its speed recently. It almost became his nightmare. That was the color that the plane had unleashed on him by Qinghai Lake. Jia Yan's shock was simply a feeling of horror. For him, that is an existence that he cannot fight against now, but that guy actually chased him here? Jia Yan's body made a very fast disguised movement in the air, but he remembered that the one that day did not hit him because of his disguise. So at this time, he made this action. After Jia Yan made this action in the air, he suddenly became very alert and used his fastest flying speed. Run down. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 244. The wing muscles are in their most powerful state. Dive. The speed exceeds the speed of sound. Breaking through 1,500 km per hour. Breaking through 1,800 km per hour. Breaking through 2,000 km per hour. Breaking through 2,300 km per hour. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The body of the big mosquito made a huge sound in the air, and a huge sonic boom cloud appeared in the air. Jia Yan's dive can be said to be his fastest display of speed, but at this time, he is still dissatisfied with his speed. Those weird white lights are directly at the speed of light. How could his speed be faster than the speed of light? Flying in the air, When Jia Yan's body thought about the speed of light, he was instantly stunned. Speed of light? It seems not. The white light that passed near his body just now was obviously not traveling at the speed of light. And what's going on with the constant sounds in the air? This obviously doesn't look like he's chasing himself. He was really nervous just now. After seeing this white light, he immediately started to escape. After all, for him, the most powerful opponent that impressed him most recently was that one. But now I suddenly realized something was wrong. After the big mosquito's body made a disguise in the air, it reached the ground very quickly. Turning around in a depression on the ground, the giant mosquito was extremely light and hid behind a huge rock on the ground. This huge boulder just hides Jia Yan's body. He looked at the movement above through the gap on the top of the boulder. Soon, Jia Yan's compound eyes gained a gleam of horror. He saw that not far above his head, the flying saucer-like thing indeed appeared here, but next to him, there was a huge stick-like thing that also appeared here. Both are extremely fast, each exceeding the speed of sound, and not just the speed of sound. At least 3 times the speed of sound, no. Even more than 3 times. Maybe 4 times or even 5 times the speed of sound. Jia Yan's compound eyes were full of energy appearing in waves. The fastest flying tools he has seen on this earth are the planes made by the people on earth, but those planes can exceed twice the speed of sound, which is already the limit. But want to exceed the speed of sound 5 times. It's simply impossible. But now he not only saw these 2 flying vehicles, they both exceeded 5 times the speed of sound. And they don't seem to have demonstrated their full flying capabilities, because they can do some incredible things at 5 times the speed of sound. Even in Jia Yan's opinion, these movements and disguises were impossible. This is simply incredible. Jia Yan looked at the 2 flying machines above his head. They flew above Jia Yan's head, constantly chasing each other, and then fired from the launch ports on their bodies. Shoot those white rays. They are actually attacking each other. Jia Yan looked at it for a while and immediately understood. This one looks like a flying stick, and the other looks like a flying stick, actually attacking each other. Hostile to each other. Their strength seems to be about the same, and they all look injured. No wonder they stopped attacking me when they saw me just now. After looking at it for a while, Jia Yan knew about these 2 flying machines. He attacked himself, but why didn't he attack him? Obviously in their eyes, maybe this big mosquito is just a little bit bigger compared to ordinary mosquitoes. However, this disdainful attitude is a good thing in Jia Yan's opinion. Now, he has not yet fought against something of this level head-on. So he was below, watching these 2 things, fighting in the sky. At the same time, his mind was also changing rapidly. That flying saucer-like thing is obviously the one that attacked me last time. He is in an injured state now, but the opponent is not much better than him, and if these 2 things are fighting like this, they are obviously not in the same camp. Yes, then is it like what the scientists on Earth said, that there are camps among these monsters? Through the battle between these 2 flying objects, Jia Yan can see that these 2 flying objects are definitely not treason from one camp, but things belonging to 2 camps. I couldn't participate in their battle, but it was in a normal state. Now these 2 things seem to have been injured. Jia Yan's compound eyes were flashing rapidly. At this time, he remembered that the 2 pieces of metal he had obtained, the metal material that greatly attracted him, seemed to be the flying saucer-like thing that fell out of his body. Jia Yan's memory seemed to be strengthened when he mutated, so after that day's battle, he remembered the flying saucer that attacked him through a meeting. It seems that when it appeared that day, there were damage spots similar to those metal pieces in certain places on the body. Those places seemed to be very consistent with several pieces of metal. If they all fell from the body of that flying saucer, then Jia Yan's compound eyes are even more shiny. Does that mean that the entire flying saucer itself is made of the kind of metal material that tempted Jia Yan so much? If he used this substance to mutate himself, wouldn't it mean that his mutation would be enhanced and become extremely powerful? Jia Yan couldn't imagine how powerful he would become if his next mutation was all based on this metal substance that was so alluring to him. That is definitely not comparable to the blue-gray pebbles harvested now. No, I have to chase them. Jia Yan thought of this and suddenly had a greater desire for his own powerful possibility. Normally, he wouldn't dare to chase, but right now these two guys are fighting. There may even be a possibility of both perishing together. The metal material of the flying saucer is very attractive to Jia Yan. If the guess is not wrong, the flying stick-like thing should also be very attractive to Jia Yan. Of course Jia Yan is thinking too much. If these two things were eliminated so easily, they wouldn't last so long, and there would be nothing they could do against each other. However, Jia Yan's unwillingness to give up is precisely due to the impact of the battle. As long as there is a slight possibility, then you must grasp it and refuse to let it go. Become stronger no matter what. This is his philosophy. This is also the driving force behind why he has become so strong. So at this time, after a slight dodge, the big mosquito continued to fly towards the sky. Abandoning the original practice of collecting blue-gray pebbles, the harvest now is quite a lot anyway. As an auxiliary substance for the next mutation, there is basically not much difference. So he goes after these two powerful UFOs. Don't get too close, otherwise they will regard it as a threat and throw a white light at me. Even if this white light doesn't seem as strong as the one that attacked me last time, it will definitely make me unable to eat. Jia Yan gradually took off, and the two mysterious flying objects in the distance were already flying away very quickly under attack from each other. He lifted his body up 2,000 meters in the air. The two UFOs in the distance were about to disappear before our eyes. Jia Yan's eyes lit up, then he spread out his figure and chased in that direction at high speed. In the sky, two UFOs started fighting each other faster. Their speed is so fast. In an instant, they reached an altitude of 10,000 meters that Jia Yan could not reach, and then suddenly dropped to less than 1 meter from the ground. It seemed that for them, the gravity of the earth did not exist at all. A bright white light, sprinkles from the sky, reflecting the ground brightly. A tree was directly reflected by this white light, and with a loud bang, the tree was split into two halves. And that ray of light continued to cast out, directly hitting a big hole in the ground. This shows how powerful this attack is. Not long after, the two fighting UFOs quickly left. Not long after that, a huge flying monster with a dark color all over its body flew from the sky. After this monster saw the big hole in the ground, the luster in its compound eyes flickered slightly. Although the power of this attack is also extremely powerful, it still seems to be a little behind compared to the white light attack I suffered that day. It seems that they are not able to emit that extremely powerful white light without limit. But that night, the flying saucer still used this light attack on me, obviously because in his eyes, I was a you must use that attack to be able to solve the threat. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 245. After seeing the damage caused by the white light attack on the ground, Jia Yan was finally sure. Although this attack may be more powerful than the various attacks he encountered, the damage it may cause him is probably about the same as the self-destruction damage caused by the metal monster. It seems I'm not that bad. When these two things met me before, they didn't attack. Maybe it wasn't because I wasn't strong enough, but because they were facing enemies and didn't want to provoke a monster as powerful as me. Although Jia Yan might not even be able to withstand their attacks in a head-on battle, when the two sides were fighting, the fighting power of his giant mosquito would be the last straw that could break the camel's back. After Jia Yan analyzed this, the light in his eyes became even brighter. His flying form became even faster. Although his position is a little higher, it is obviously impossible for him to directly confront the two flying objects. Therefore, although he is closer at this time, it is absolutely impossible to directly fight with them. Start the battle. Jia Yan's pursuit did not seem to attract the attention of the two UFOs in the sky. Their battle at this time has reached a fever pitch. Whoosh! The sound of attacks keeps ringing. Boom! Suddenly, the injured flying saucer was accidentally hit directly by a white light during the battle. A piece of bright white metal material in his body fell directly from the sky, rolled, and quickly dropped towards the ground. The big mosquito in the distance saw this falling metal material. The wings flap violently and wildly. Rob! Because the flying saucer-shaped one was also flying unsteadily at this time, flying towards this piece of metal material, as if it wanted to recover it. Jia Yan wants to grab this piece of metal before that happens. The giant mosquito monster of all times. It mutates in the crazy life and death. This time, faced with such a huge opportunity, he will not let it go. Even if you have to face the threat of UFOs. Boom boom boom. The giant mosquito made a series of movements in the air, and at the same time, the flying saucer released a white light from his body. This white light is not the super strong ray that attacked Jia Yan before. It was the less powerful and slower attack they had fired at each other before. In addition, the flying saucer seems to be injured now, so his white light is attacking. The angle is not that tricky, so for Jia Yan, who was already making evasive movements, this white light had no effect at all. Whoosh! Near Jia Yan's body. White light one after another. The flying saucer seemed unwilling to let go of the piece of material it had dropped, and actually ignored the flying stick-like thing behind it that was attacking it. Directly aim at Jia Yan and launch attacks continuously. Whoosh! The big mosquito's compound eyes flashed faintly at this time. His movements were unprecedentedly fast and full of agility. Whoosh 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 whoosh. Although the speed of the big mosquito is not comparable to the two. But his flexibility is not too slow, and he has great biological flying instincts. This time the big mosquito flies. It turned into a very fast twisting action. He keeps twisting in the air. His figure was very flexible, and the flying saucer aimed at him looked injured. The movements are deformed, and the white light coming out of the attack is no longer as powerful and fast. The big mosquito's heart was filled with more energy. His speed became faster. The piece of metal slowly got closer before his eyes, got closer, and continued to get closer. Choke. Finally, the big mosquito picked up the piece of metal with one of its front legs. This piece of metal was indeed not much different from the two small pieces of metal he had obtained, and its mass was more than dozens of times that of the former. Holding the giant mosquito in its front feet is like holding a huge door panel. Got it, let's go. The big mosquito was overjoyed. He was full of pride for his move. Although he was scared to death of them before, when it was time to take action, he still took action. This move not only showed his courage, but also showed that his understanding of the battle situation and his own strength has made great progress compared to before. Neither blindly confident nor blindly unconfident. These two strange UFOs. Obviously they are stronger than him, but their condition is not good, and their strength is not as strong as Jia Yan thought before. So now he has directly fulfilled his wish and obtained this metal substance. Let's go. After he saw the flying stick quickly approaching the flying saucer-shaped one, he intercepted it with a laser. He immediately let go of his speed and continued to fly back. The battle between the three objects was already approaching the seaside at an extremely fast speed, and Jia Yan's temporary nest was in a place close to Shanghai, which was quite far away from this place. So now he needs to go back quickly. Everything was ready, and he unexpectedly obtained this metal substance. For him now, this metal substance is a timely help. If he follows the previous mutation plan, Jia Yan doesn't know how much he can improve, but he absolutely believed that even if he improved, he would never be able to fight against these two UFOs. However, that is not necessarily the case now. Now he has so much metal material. This material now seems to be the body of the flying saucer. The things that can be used to build it must be something extraordinary, so if so much is used, he was looking forward to merging the metal material into his body, not necessarily how strong he would become. And just when Jia Yan was flying, he was already almost 1,000 meters away from the battlefield in just 1 second. Can you understand what I'm saying? A voice that sounds like a girl suddenly appeared in Jia Yan's hearing organ. Is this? Jia Yan was shocked. He didn't see anything around him, and the voice seemed to come from inside his head. It was incredible. What's going on? How did this voice appear? Jia Yan looked around with compound eyes in surprise. But his flying figure still didn't stop, and flew forward even faster. He suddenly understood that the sound must be caused by the two UFOs behind him. The other party was too weird, and he didn't want to get into any more trouble with them. Your reaction just now shows that you understand the Chinese language I am using. Mr. Giant Mosquito, please help me destroy this flying saucer. I believe this is in the mutual interest of both of us. Look after your mother's interests. Jia Yan buried his head and flew wildly. Judging from the other party's words, he is the UFO like the flying stick, or the pilot on it. If he wants to destroy the UFO, Jia Yan believes it, but he does not believe that he can fight with the other party. Join forces to destroy this flying saucer monster, and the other party directly communicates with him in such a weird way. Jia Yan doesn't even understand this principle, so he seeks to join forces with such an incomprehensible being. If you were cheated and sold, you don't know where to cry. For a long time, Jia Yan has wanted to communicate with other things, so when he has time, he will go to the internet to communicate with two killers or girls through QQ, but that is not the real communication he wants. Now this weird flying stick thing actually communicated with him in this unique way, but Jia Yan didn't feel happy. But a kind of weird horror. After all, he doesn't understand what this method of communication is like at all. It is impossible for Jia Yan to trust such an unequal communication method. Wait a minute, Mr. Giant Mosquito, if you are willing to join forces with me, I can give you some benefits. The voice from behind continued, ringing in Jia Yan's mind. But the big mosquito's compound eyes flickered and he was not moved at all. Reborn as an Interstellar Giant Mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 246. His speed became faster. The emergence of this method of communication made him understand more clearly how far he was from these two things. If the flying object had not restrained the flying saucer when he grabbed the metal object just now, he would have it is impossible to snatch this metal substance from the hands of a flying saucer. It's even possible that he might be dead now. But just when Jia Yan flew 3,000 meters away from the two fighting parties, he seemed to hear something being broken through by him. The voice that had been conveying in my mind suddenly disappeared. Jia Yan's compound eyes were dim this time and he looked back. The flying stick is still fighting with the flying saucer. Jia Yan was a little silent. I hope that after my mutation this time, I can be involved in such a battle. Jia Yan looked at the battle behind him, and then spread his wings with all his strength. Whoosh 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 whoosh. The body of the giant mosquito draws a beautiful straight line in the air, and the sonic boom cloud breaks through the speed of sound, pulling out a long one in the air. Boom boom boom. His flying speed was extremely fast, and the battle scene behind him disappeared at an extremely fast speed. Jia Yan knows that he is not qualified enough to fight against these mysterious and powerful things. Not only his background is not enough, but his strength is also estimated to be very different. So he didn't make any impulsive moves rashly, and that's not his style either. On the contrary, the sound of that flying stick thing launching at me is similar to the sonic attack launched by the flying saucer on me before. Jia Yan thought of the flying saucer that launched a sonic attack on him near Qinghai Lake. This attack was extremely terrifying for Jia Yan. But this time the flying saucer didn't use sonic attacks on him again. I don't know if it was because he knew it was too far away from Jia Yan and the attack would have no effect, or because he was too damaged to use that attack again. It may also be the reason why the flying stick is harassing him in the air. Jia Yan thought about it for a while. I no longer pay attention to this issue. He just looked at the huge metal substance in his hand that was as big as a door panel. After the flying saucer dropped this substance, part of its body was missing, even though there was some substance underneath. It also seemed to be a smooth layer of defensive material, but it was obviously lost after this piece of material was lost. It had a huge impact on his combat effectiveness. Well, now that we are out of their fighting range, don't think too much. I hope the piece of metal I risked my life to snatch this time will have an effect on me. Jia Yan looked at such a large piece of metal. Feel the deep longing in your body, and there are already some clots on the surface of your body, as if they can't wait for this substance. It unfolded and swallowed. Jia Yan smiled slightly in his heart. It seemed that he made the right choice. This thing. Obviously it is of great benefit to his body. The big mosquito's body made a quick turning movement in the air. He just deliberately flew in the opposite direction to his home base just now, just because he was afraid that the two UFOs would come looking for him in the direction he left later, although Jia Yan also believed it. The possible detection range of such a weird thing from the other party is the entire Earth. But this matter is just speculation, not to mention that he made this move with high vigilance. As for whether it has any effect, it depends on reality. Anyway, it doesn't take much time for him to fly an extra distance. It's always right to take extra precautions. The big mosquito's body flew towards its home nest, which was where the small village was. However, not long after the big mosquito flew away, a somewhat tattered butterfly-shaped flying object slowly circled in the sky. After he stayed at this place for a while, he seemed to find nothing, and then continued flying forward. A moment later, something like a flying stick, also slightly damaged, flew through the air. After he observed the location here, he did not fly forward like the flying saucer, but flew slowly towards the direction where Jia Yan was. Jia Yan, who has arrived at his home base, doesn't know all this. When he arrived at his temporary hiding place, he took out all the gains he had made during this period, little by little. There are more than 100 blue-gray pebbles and 2 smaller pieces of metal. And there was this piece of metal he brought back, which was as big as a door panel. These metal substances were obviously dropped from that flying saucer-like thing. Their current attraction to Jia Yan is unimaginably powerful. The clot on the body surface was rapidly decomposing, and seemed to turn into a slime-like thing, squirming lightly on the ground. These are the things that devour the ground. Even Jia Yan himself found it very strange when he saw it. What's going on with my mutation? For a long time, Jia Yan has not had a good positioning for his mutation. He had to fight for his life before he was alive. Even if he thinks a little about his mutation, he will not think that deeply. But now, he found that his body had become even weirder, so he suddenly felt a little interested in exploring this so-called mutation. His body conveyed a little bit of mutated thoughts, and the clot defense on his body suddenly dissolved, quickly turning into a soft thing. The clots flowed down, and the ground they passed through, including some pieces of land and stones, all had traces of corrosion. Jia Yan knew that if he was not passing on better mutated substances in front of him and trying to control his desire to devour, then these condensates would have directly swallowed all the substances on the ground into his body and dissolved them into the material needed for mutation. But this is not what Jia Yan wants. He now has a certain understanding of his own mutation. If he swallows it, it seems that any substance can be used. It just swallows something worse than before. Not only will it not enhance the combat effectiveness will even be reduced. So how could he allow himself to swallow other things casually? And mutation doesn't happen at any time. Now that Jia Yan can mutate, it seems like he needs a few days to adjust his mood. That is to constantly communicate with the body that is ready for the next mutation, conveying the idea that it can be swallowed immediately. Otherwise, just take some things that can mutate him and put them near his body temporarily. He can't devour what's coming. Only when so many conditions are met can the mutation begin. The condensate finally found the first blue-gray pebble. Jia Yan looked at it, and a burst of happy thoughts seemed to pass through his body. Then he also felt that there seemed to be a good substance that was quickly decomposed by the condensate and entered him. Body. Pain, numbness, itching. Jia Yan's heart trembled slightly. He also said that this small blue-gray pebble was not powerful enough, but now it is so powerful when he swallows it. With such violent energy, no wonder it can cause huge explosion damage. But what about metallic substances? They don't look like they're going to explode, so why are they more attractive to me? Jia Yan focused his attention on the two pieces of metal on one side. But now is not the time to absorb it. I will first absorb these blue-gray pebbles to get rid of the metal substances. Jia Yan suppressed his uncomfortable feeling. He had made plans this time. Take a good look at your own mutation process. He said the same thing last time, but on the way, Jia Yan's consciousness became a little blurry. This time, it will definitely work. Jia Yan cheered up and carefully looked at his mutation process. The condensate is moving slowly. Compared with the previous mutation, Jia Yan's current body is already extremely large, so the process is much slower. What I feel is not that there is anything different about my body itself, but that my series of mutated substances are all things that promote my mutation. But this time, except for the blue-gray pebbles, it seems that the metal matter, but it doesn't have the familiar feeling of a series of mutated things before. In other words, my previous mutation seems to have a certain relationship with the blue-gray pebbles, but this metallic substance has no relationship at all. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 247. Jia Yan has always said that he does not want to absorb any more soil from the ground, but his body is still frantically absorbing soil and other substances from the ground. Perhaps Jia Yan himself has not discovered that his mutation is not a simple and good mutation. The materials are enough for him to mutate, but these mutated substances, any substance requires a little. If certain substances in the soil are missing, then his mutation may not be so perfect. Even if he purely uses excellent mutant substances, the mutation effect of a single substance is not very good, and now Jia Yan's body is following its own instinct, absorbing all useful substances into the body to realize his mutation process. Of course, the main mutated things must be blue-gray pebbles and metallic substances. These two things are the guarantee for the success of his mutation. It is also the cornerstone of his future strength. As for those other auxiliary substances, they are all insignificant things. And when Jia Yan was mutating, all the substances on the ground were completely absorbed by the condensate at this time for some unknown reason. Even if it is not absorbed, it is directly covered, which makes it look like something like blue-gray soil. From a high altitude, this thing looks like a darker mound of soil. Whizzing. At the critical moment when Jia Yan's mutation has developed to this point, there is an extremely fast flying thing, drawing a strange and light trace in the sky, flying over at extremely fast speed. The flying speed of this thing is simply too fast. All of a sudden, he exceeded the speed of sound by 5 times, and when he flew, it was extremely stable, as if this was not his limit at all. This flying thing looks like a stick. Although it is not a wonderful shape, its flying speed can prove its power. However, the appearance of this thing looked a bit damaged at this time. A little light damage appeared on its appearance, and in some places, the material on the surface of it had been hit and damaged. So the current flying object just looks very shabby. He was constantly hovering in the sky, seemingly looking for something. Sometimes it even stops and floats faintly in the sky. Not long. This extremely fast flying stick arrived at the village where Jia Yan was located. However, there was nothing unusual about this flying stick at this time, and it seemed that it did not find where Jia Yan was. When he was in this place, a faint light shone downwards. This light has no offensive power, but it seems to have some probing power. But when the light came to Jia Yan, who was undergoing mutation, his surface was slightly cyan, but there was no reaction at all after the light passed. The condensation on the surface of Jia Yan's body seems to have blocked the exploratory ability of this flying stick thing. However, Jia Yan's vital signs have now reached a very low level. If his vital signs were extremely strong before, now that he is in a mutated state, he is not in a very high state. In comparison, the gap may be hundreds of times. In the past, his powerful vitality may have been difficult to match on the entire Earth, but now, he only feels like a small pet. It is estimated that the detecting light is used to detect vitality, and he cannot detect Jia Yan now. Maybe that flying stick. It is impossible to imagine that the vital signs of that extremely powerful creature before would actually become so low now. So now he is hovering around this place a little bit. It flew directly towards the sky, and not long after, its figure disappeared into the distance of the sky. Jia Yan below did not know that his mutation actually blocked the pursuit of a flying object from the flying stick, and that the flying stick was really unable to destroy the seriously injured flying saucer. What impact will the two continue to have on him after the mutation? He still doesn't know this. Now, he is completely immersed in his own mutation physically and mentally. The impact of the mutation on him has caused the five senses of his body and any ability to perceive the outside world to disappear. In other words, every time his body mutates, it is a process of reorganization. Now, he should be said to be in a state of suspended animation. And when Jia Yan was still in the process of suspended animation, the Earth world at this time finally ushered in the real attack of the metal monster. When countless humans on the Earth cheered happily that the metal monster no longer continued to attack, a red light appeared above the head of Washington, the capital of the Star-Spangled Banner, the most powerful country in history. This ray of light was like the meteor tearing apart the sky. And the next moment this meteor appeared, the red light hit directly on the White House in Washington. The light swallows everything. Boom, boom, boom. All humans who saw this light coming were blinded. All they saw was that everything in their field of vision was gone. As for the White House, there were several senior government officials currently having discussions inside. But the appearance of this ruthless white light immediately made their discussion the last memory in their lives. Whether it is the leader of the entire country in the White House, the president of the country's symbol of the stars and stripes, or the general who actually controls the country's military power, as well as several other senior officials who come to discuss, under this red light under the blow, it disappeared without any surprise. Gasification, just gasification. All traces of their existence in the world disappeared in front of this red light. And the damage caused by this red light was far more than that. After the red light hit the White House and smashed this place, which is the political center of the world, to pieces. Boom, boom, boom. The huge red light is still rising. The whole earth seems to be shaking. A round mushroom cloud appears in the center of human politics and economy. Fiery red flames roared crazily around in the mushroom cloud. It devours all the materials it passes through. These materials can be a house, a building, a person, or a dog. It treats everything equally, as if it were a fair god who treats all humble creatures equally. This red light is like a rapidly expanding aperture, and the objects in the aperture disappear one by one. The huge red color reflected the entire vast land red. It goes without saying where this red light comes from. There is only one force in this world that can use such a powerful red light power. Those are the giant buildings of Metal Monster. These buildings are so powerful that they have no limits. After the explosion, half of the entire former Washington area and the entire huge city had been lost. Note, this does not mean that half of it was destroyed, but really lost. The explosive power of the red light seemed to be extremely concentrated. Almost all the places it damaged were completely wiped out. Even the skyscrapers had completely disappeared. At most, there were only a few ruins left, even the height of a bungalow. No. And in this case, those places in the city that were not affected by the red light, in addition to being attacked by the shockwave of the huge explosion, also blew away countless materials, and blew away many human beings one by one. Apart from death due to the shockwave, there were almost no serious injuries. There was no radiation, no more dust. It seemed that after the explosion of this incredible red light, the shadow disappeared directly, without even a trace of subsequent damage and impact. But this is only physical. In the eyes of human beings, an attack of this degree is directly an uproar. The people on Earth, in an instant, entered a scene of extreme shock and panic. The capital of the most powerful country in the world, the Star-Spangled Banner, was bombarded by red light, and more than half of it disappeared. This matter is no less than dropping a huge bomb on the entire human race. Of course, in fact, the Metal Monster just dropped a bomb, and it is a bomb more powerful than almost any bomb currently used by humans. The Metal Monster finally showed its sharp claws half a month after it emerged from the underground world. The devouring is still continuing. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 248. Jia Yan was not aware of the Metal Monster's movements at all. In this human world, what he cares about most right now is his family. If there are others, then those two killers can be included. These two people have been helping his family, and in fact, they have also helped Jia Yan himself more than once. Since he has felt the other party's kindness in each incident, he naturally has a slight affection for them now. Apart from these people, Jia Yan doesn't care about the others. After all, there are not many relatives of the Jia family in this world. If we really want to count, it is the aunt's house on the mother's side, which is also the only one that Jia's father and others wanted to go to before. Relatives' homes. But their home is too far away and there is no other way. If you have to choose between family members are naturally more important. So Jia Yan is working hard, and with a direction for his efforts, his motivation to move forward is naturally great. Things in the Earth world have moved in a direction that humans could not predict before, step by step towards a path that they are unfamiliar with. Washington was bombed. That red light is many times more powerful than an ordinary nuclear bomb. At this time, not only was the world shaken because the city, the center of technological, political, and military power, was wiped out, but more importantly, mankind suddenly felt a huge sense of uneasiness about its own life and death. The heads and leaders of some powerful countries are hiding in hidden places. The first one is the Star-Spangled Banner country, and the second one is God knows which country. The attacks of the Metal Monsters have been brought to all countries in the world. A hint of shadow, now that their weapon strength has reached this level, there are too many countries they can bomb. The capital of China declared a state of emergency, and countless people began to evacuate. In the capitals of other countries, many senior officials and people also began emergency evacuation. All at once, national capitals all over the world. Except for those countries that consider themselves to have little influence, they have all made major moves to evacuate. However, people began to speculate again, that is the Metal Monster targeting the nation's capital? if their strike range is increased to all large cities. There are too many cities that need to be evacuated, and that is unrealistic. Just at this time, those metal monsters seem to just show their attack power to humans, and then they stopped emitting red light. Even the army of metal monsters disappeared and stopped attacking humans one by one, as if there was a temporary truce. A feeling of the metal monster can only make one such attack. Their huge red light requires a huge amount of energy. The metal monster's attack can only be launched once in a short period of time. This attack cannot be sustained. In the human world, one piece of news appears on the front page of various media. Some people cheered for joy, and some people were confused. Some people refused to believe it. There are too many people in this world who lost everything because of this incident. Some people's families were in that destroyed city, and some people lost everything because of that red light explosion. Stock prices, oil prices, and food prices. They all started growing like crazy. The whole world is also crazy like these crazy and chaotic financial systems. Murder has become such a common occurrence that a dead person is often lying on the street. This dead person is not only dead. Everything on him was taken away, even the clothes he was wrapped in were gone. And this miserable situation is not getting better, but getting worse. The inaction of the metal monsters has had an impact on the human world on Earth. It's not a good thing, but the opposite. As a result, mankind has fallen into even more chaos. Some countries that have experienced war quickly implemented high-pressure control methods, but those organizations and figures who are not involved in the ordinary world still have countless private actions going on. Countries that have little experience, or are led by their citizens, will directly fall into greater war. Less than 3 days later, red light attacked the capital of the Star-Spangled Banner nation. In the Star-Spangled Banner country, several territories simultaneously declared independence and formed the Star-Spangled Banner country. Their slogan is Dialogue, Survival, and Equal Development. This is an organization that previously believed in metal monsters. Taking advantage of the destruction of the capital of the Star-Spangled Banner, the entire country was in a state of power and command vacuum, so it carried out a series of armed activities to remove the command and military forces in those areas. Seize all the rights, and then announce the slogan. They believe that metal monsters can communicate, and as long as they are sincere, humans can develop and progress with them. In response to the actions of this organization, there are countless similar organizations and figures, large and small, all over the world. Crazy, the world is in chaos. For a time, mankind itself fell into painful throes and riots. And just 10 days after the metal monster red light attacked the capital of the Star-Spangled Banner. War. Countless countries have entered a state of war. Various organizations, under various banners, began to fight against either the government army or the army of other organizations, and began the process of war. Of course, most parts of the world are still under the control of various governments, but they are unable to control the organizations in their respective regions. One group is destroyed and another appears. It seems that they can never kill all the people in these organizations. And there are too many. They snatch everything, resources, weapons. Even the population. These organizations have stood up on their own one by one. In their interactions with government troops and various forces, their combat effectiveness and political power have greatly improved, so much so that sometimes when government troops strangled them, they would be stopped. When the world is in chaos, there are always more demons. Countless people have become victims of various forces and wars. All of this, the big mosquito, which was in the process of slow mutation, was not aware of it at all. Perhaps in his opinion, this kind of thing was too fast. The process seemed to have been arranged by someone a long time ago, guiding humans so quickly. Just go on the road of self-destruction. However, these are really not arranged by anyone. It's just that after such a long war, human beings have been under too much pressure. All the pressure has exploded when the most powerful country in the world almost fell apart when the Star-Spangled Banner nation. They don't dare to trouble the metal monster. That will only disrupt the current government and the current rules of the world. As a result, in 10 days, the entire time has undergone such a big change. Of course, among them, there are naturally some forces that have been preparing for a long time, and of course there are also many organizations that were formed by accident. In short, this is how chaos suddenly formed. The big mosquito is still sleeping. That's right. His mutation process has lasted for 10 days, but there is still no sign of ending. As for the Shanghai Stock Exchange, it seems that COM has an excellent reputation for safety in the neighborhood because of Jia Yan's protection. So much so that during this special period, not only a group of leaders who abandoned the capital came over, but also many political figures from various countries came to this place. Although I don't know why that big mosquito protects this international metropolis, his combat effectiveness is obvious to all, and according to nearby statistics, he has eliminated more than one army of metal monsters. The metal monster he destroyed happened to be in a position that surrounded the entire Shanghai city. This kind of thing was unlikely to be an accident. Therefore, humans boldly speculate that this giant mosquito monster is really protecting this metropolis. It would be great if it was the protection of the entire giant mosquito race. Thinking that this situation is not impossible, many people with good thinking skills gave up their hometowns and migrated to Shanghai. It is for this reason that the outer areas outside Shanghai city are actually overcrowded. The most objective reflection of the population at this time is that the consumption of food has become extremely rapid in recent times. The war with the metal monster has only been a short month, and now there is a food shortage. Some families had the foresight to prepare enough food. However, there are more people who were completely unprepared for this crisis and fled their cities with their families. There were countless casualties along the way. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito author, Bulletin U. Chapter 249. But now another crisis has once again appeared on these unprepared people. That's food. Food is gone and prices are extremely high, so these people who have no choice but to become violent perpetrators. They go and plunder other people's food. Although the government has distributed some food, it is only a drop in the bucket. So those poor people turned into perpetrators, and even small gangs were born. Perhaps it is possible for any of these small gangs to grow into a behemoth in the future. Among them, there is a group that gradually grows around the Shanghai Stock Exchange. When no one else notices, its power grows day by day. Growing up. The leader of this gang is a man with extremely powerful force. His nickname is Northeast Wild Tiger. This powerful man is said to be able to tear his hands apart and turn his head. He can dodge ordinary firearms at extremely fast speeds. He also has a friend who is both a teacher and a friend, or a partner, that is, a super strong man who once caused an uproar in China. He is the addict. With the existence of these two super strong men, this gang has become extremely powerful, and its weapons and equipment are also top-notch among nearby gangs. After all, the methods of drug addicts are already extraordinary in this country of China. He wanted a batch of weapons, and at this time, they were all extremely simple. As a result, the combat effectiveness of this gang and the number of members are almost the same every day. By the time the government control personnel notice it, the strength of this gang is no longer easy to deal with. Today is the time for the Siberian wild tigers to fight with another large gang. One of the two parties controls nearly 1/10 of Shanghai's peripheral areas, and the other controls nearly 2/10 of the peripheral areas. These places are filled with refugees from other places, and the government looks down upon them. But gangs like them are eager to do this. Today is already 15 days since the red light attacked Washington, the capital of the Star-Spangled Banner. Half a month, the whole time rules. Everything seems to have changed. As far as China is concerned, the government and the army are still the most powerful forces on the surface, and no matter how hard other forces try, they cannot be the opponents of the government for the time being, but the military and government at this time. But they have already acquiesced to the emergence of those large gangs. There are just constraints. They do not attack these self-contained gangs, but they must ensure that they obey the regulations and cannot do anything too harmful. Otherwise, they will wait for the army to suppress them. What the government needs is for them to help the government and the military, which are short of people, to manage the people below. If possible, it is best to restore some production and life. After all, the current situation has not been so corrupted that production and life cannot be carried out. In fact, not many cities in various places have fallen, but the public security has become extremely poor, and the government has no time to take into account the actions of the refugees because it needs to wait for the next war against the metal monsters. Therefore, they need an agent-like existence. An agent who can obey the government is something that everyone is willing to see. So these gangs that can obey orders are the best. But there are policies from above, and countermeasures from below, today. That's when the two gangs fight. The Siberian wild tiger is in his own group, with a faint smile on his face. This young man can be said to have had ups and downs in his previous factory. Under the attack of giant mosquitoes and those strong figures, he became lost. He even nearly died at one point. But now, this man stood up again. He swallowed a black liquid that day. This liquid was clearly stated in the manual of his family's ancestors to have a chance of 1 in a few thousand. Grow into an extremely powerful character. It is said that the national-level monster that the Japanese country once occupied among the top 3 strongest men in the world became so powerful after taking this thing. At that time, the Siberian wild tigers were about to die. Naturally, regardless of the high mortality rate, what I didn't expect was that this guy actually succeeded. With a success rate of 1 in a few thousand, he actually succeeded and became another monster after Shoiki Yokota. Even this monster appeared in this era of upcoming chaos. That's why he showed off his talents like this. He was growing at a speed that even the drug addict had not expected. This is another replica of the monster. In other words, he is a monster among humans. Today, people from both sides agreed to meet at a place. The number of people on one side is more than 100, and the number of people on the other side is more than 300. What is different from previous peacetime gang meetings is that the people on both sides are actually armed with live ammunition. Wild tigers from the northeast, people from the northeast should go back to your northeast. What kind of heroes can we do here in Shanghai? On the other side of the more than 300 people, a man looked at the more than 100 people in front of him, not even half of his own, and said with some disdain, "This person is the leader of the other party." As a local, he can be regarded as a very capable person in Shanghai, so he has gathered so many subordinates, all of whom are very tough. Among the more than 100 people opposite this group of people, there was a tall man. This young man had a rough face and a kind of arrogance on his face. As a new monster, he doesn't have many opponents in this world. As long as he improves his combat experience, his strength will reach the pinnacle of mankind on earth. So he looked down upon the other people here. Even when surrounded by a large army, he didn't have any special expression. After all, he also has the strongest bodyguard, hiding and waiting for opportunities in the darkness of this night. He is outnumbered, but he is not afraid. Why are you talking so much nonsense? I haven't met a few Siberian wild tigers here that have eggs. Now show me if they have eggs, haha. The Siberian wild tiger laughed arrogantly. His words naturally made the other party look ugly, so not long after, gunshots started to ring out. Bang bang bang. The sound of this battle lasted for half the night. There are even sounds of grenades and rocket launchers. This duel is not much different from the battle of a small army. And just when the night passed and dawn arrived, the winner of the duel was already decided. The gang on the other side retreated in defeat, and the outsider, the Siberian wild tiger, won. At this point, the northeastern wild tigers have laid a solid foundation in the outer boundary of Shanghai and Shanghai. Even the big shots in the Shanghai and Shanghai markets have to think carefully before taking action against this figure. It is said that there are two powerful killers in Shanghai City. We will send people there tomorrow to win them over. Our current strength still requires such powerful individuals, otherwise we will not be able to pose a threat to those big shots head on. Only the pressure created by me alone is not enough. The addict said calmly next to the victorious Siberian wild tiger, and then his figure disappeared in the darkness again. Are there any killers like that in Shanghai? I don't know about this news. It seems that there are more sources of information for senior drug addicts than me. The Siberian wild tiger watched the drug addict disappear. In this place, I lamented that this master, even if he becomes a monster, is still not something he can deal with at this stage. You too, go to Shanghai City to look for the two so-called killers. By the way, see if they have any weaknesses. What the Northeast wild tiger did may be the most wrong thing he has done since he became a monster. A decision. The Shanghai Stock Exchange is turbulent. In other parts of the world, chaos has turned into a pot of porridge. Time passed gradually. Finally, when the day came and the red light hit Washington for 18 days. A village not far from Shanghai. The human beings in this mountain village have already fled long ago. Although people who fled have come intermittently to this place for a temporary rest, they have not regarded this place as their residence. What none of these passers-by know is that the most attractive security reason in Shanghai, that is, the big mosquito monster, is now undergoing his transformation in a mountain forest less than a few hundred meters outside this small village and town. Today, the day of transformation has reached the 18th day. The waiting time for mutation has never been so long before. But it seems that this mutation has reached its final moment. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 250. The small blue-gray hill is just one of the unique scenery in this broken world, but what it contains is the hope of many people in Shanghai. That is, the giant mosquito monster. Bang bang. Bang bang. Bang bang bang. One after another, voices kept ringing in this mound. The sound seemed to be the beating of a heart, but it was much louder than the beating of a human heart. And the surrounding things seemed to be trembling together in this rhythm that is like the beating of the heart. Bang bang. Bang bang. Bang bang bang. A tree was following the beating rhythm. After shaking off its leaves for a while, it actually made a crisp click sound. It dropped from time to time. Following the tree and the objects near the mound, one by one they made overwhelming bursting sounds. This sound seemed to be because the sounds made by the things in the mound had a faint sense of attack from the sound. At this time, the whole nearby things are directly showing signs of disintegration from the inside under the beating of his rhythm. But the sound didn't last long. Just disappear. The small mound of bluish-gray soil, at this time, has a light bluish-gray appearance. If the color of the surrounding soil were not different from him, it might have completely penetrated into this mound, and there would be no difference at all. But if you analyze the internal appearance, you can see that in this mound, a behemoth is brewing, and it has reached the final moment. This is a giant mosquito creature. His body is in a prone posture, and there is a faint sense of transparency emerging from his body surface. This sense of transparency makes him almost visible. There were obvious blood vessels in his body, and the clotted tissues on his body were gradually solidifying. Appear to exploit these clotted tissues. Add the nutrients and mysterious substances in the body to the surface of the clot. These mysterious substances are not only the previous azure substances, but also contain the metals obtained from flying objects. Not even Jia Yan can tell how hard these metals are, they seem to be almost the same as azure matter. And now the two are superimposed on each other. And it is no longer the kind of state where the blue substance appears when it wants to appear, but does not appear when it does not want to appear or when it is too late. Then the defense of this giant mosquito's body has simply reached an incredible level. Maybe it took so long to be reborn. Jia Yan's biggest improvement is definitely this time. Of course, every variation. This was the time when he was much stronger, although this time it was said to be the most powerful mutation. But whether there is a possibility of greater mutation intensity than this in the future is still unknown. But now the big mosquito. You don't think about things that long ago. At this time, Jia Yan's mind gradually recovered from the chaotic state. The compound eyes of the big mosquito seemed to have transformed from a dead thing into a living thing again. Gradually he regained his vitality. As his body recovered, there was a faint feeling of power, which was conveyed in this body. Even an ordinary human being could tell that this feeling was powerful now. It's not just as simple as being powerful. Have I completed my mutation? The big mosquito quietly observed its body in the dark. At this time, he first felt the size of his body. 6 meters. Jia Yan was stunned. He has always been able to mutate powerfully according to certain rules. Under that rule, once his mutation reaches the later stages, his body will increase very slowly. But this time, he actually grew from 2.5 meters to 2.5 meters. His body has grown to a height of 6 meters. Although it looks like it is only twice as long, the actual change is completely different. A human child at the age of 3 or 4 is about half the height of an adult, but their strength and other abilities are simply not comparable to that of an adult. Jia Yan looked at his body. At this time, he was already vaguely looking forward to how much his strength had improved. There is also defense. I can feel that my body's defense is already strong to a level that was unreachable before. Just how strong it is will have to be verified later. At this time, Jia Yan kept peeking at his body. His body at this time gave him the feeling of being truly powerful. Incredibly powerful. I'm really strong. Now, whether I can fight those two mysterious flying objects head-on, I still have to fight to know. But if we talk about metal monsters, even if I don't use blue-gray pebbles, I feel if you are facing an army of metal monsters, you don't need to be afraid of anything. The giant mosquito's compound eyes were shining with light. Powerful. The powerful feeling all over your body is intoxicating and exciting. Even after just such a preliminary judgment, Jia Yan felt that his mood became excited. And this judgment is only his preliminary judgment. Whether the specific situation is that he can only fight an army of metal monsters, or whether he can fight those powerful aircraft, is something he doesn't know. He was just estimating based on the feeling returned by his body. Okay, I think my body has been adjusted and I can go out. Jia Yan looked at the dark scenery in front of him in the green mound, and the light in his eyes made him even more energetic. Suddenly, the giant mosquito moved. One front foot moves forward gently. Powerful, even with such a simple movement, Jia Yan can get such information from the sensory feedback of his body. Extremely powerful. This level of power was something even Jia Yan had never expected before this mutation. After all, although he knew that this mutation would improve his strength before this, he would never have thought that now, even if it was just his own estimate, he would no longer be afraid of the self-destruction of some metal monster. Attacked. And there seems to be some reservations about this estimate. Jia Yan didn't know how strong he was. But it is foreseeable that the giant mosquito at this time will definitely make the world stunned, thinking that in this form, he is the strongest giant mosquito monster. But even humans don't know that the giant mosquito monster has always been just him. As the front foot moves, the knife-shaped horn on the forefoot still exists. The current knife-shaped horn seems not as sharp as before. However, With the huge strength and harder horn structure, not only is his attack power impossible to reduce, but it is also a huge improvement. So at this time, Jia Yan just used the horniness of his front foot to gently stroke it. The blue-gray substance in front, which is the layer of cocoon that wraps Jia Yan's body, gently appeared a hole. Moreover, when this hole appeared, it also triggered other nearby wrapped materials, and a series of reactions caused them to collapse. Blah blah blah. Before Jia Yan completed the mutation, these substances were extremely powerful defensive substances. However, as the mutation unfolded, the substances in them, those powerful defensive structures, were absorbed into the body bit by the clot, so when Jia Yan by the time they complete their mutation, they are just a pile of debris without any defense capability. Hua hua hua. The blue-gray substance at the bottom caused a huge noise nearby. However, there is no human figure in this place, so no one can see the birth of the supergiant mosquito. This is a scene that can go down in history. A huge giant monster slowly extended its legs and feet toward the outside world. The blue-gray substances near his body fell to the ground piece by piece. Countless smoke and dust. But it couldn't hide the huge body. It was a dark behemoth with a hint of blue and greenish-gray. This behemoth has 6 slender legs, and the surface of his body is covered with clots. These clots are the main part of the color of his body. Compared with the previous giant mosquito, he now has extremely special features. The feeling of thick shell. This feeling is not just that the giant mosquito has a thicker clot shell, but that his current clot seems to have changed from the previous feeling of not being in a very stable state to a thicker and more solid one. It has a sense of grandeur and heaviness. It is directly convincing that the current clot defense is already an extremely powerful defense. Reborn as an interstellar giant mosquito. Author, Bulletin U. Chapter 251. The huge giant mosquito monster has an unprecedented 6-meter-long body. It stands on 6 long legs and does not need to be deliberately raised. The height of this huge body is also higher than the tallest animal on the earth. Elephant. And if he were calculated based on his body length, today's giant mosquitoes, even those giraffes, would rarely have a body as long as his. This mosquito is definitely an unprecedented supergiant mosquito on this earth. Even among all animals, it is already an incredible behemoth. Supergiant mosquito. Deserved. As for combat strength, of all the animals on Earth, even if you count the previous dinosaurs, none of them are as powerful as the giant mosquito. Unprecedented, the Earth world deserves to be the most powerful beast ever seen before. Blah blah blah. The body of the giant mosquito moves. The blue-gray fragments on the ground were constantly being kicked aside as he moved, and smoke and dust billowed up. With the movement of the giant mosquito, the ground seemed to be shaking. A slowly moving giant object caused no trace of these vibrations. Not an exaggeration. The huge monster has a pair of compound eyes, which are as huge as the windows of a human high-rise building. The transparent compound eyes make his gaze look strange and bright. He has a pair of wings that look like they can fly extremely fast. The only thing he worries about is such a huge creature, and his weight seems to be quite heavy. Whether it can fly well is unknown. But even then, the appearance of this monster insect is extremely lethal. Ah, this is the feeling of oxygen. This time of mutation, it seems that my body has acquired a special structure of that metal material. The body can not only absorb the oxygen from the outside as body oxygen, but also have the possibility is actually the possibility of being able to hold one's breath for a short period of time. The possibility of producing oxygen. This way I can go to places with harsh environments. Then I don't need to worry too much about oxygen. The big mosquito's compound eyes are shining. His wings spread slightly. In this world, no one has seen a monster that reaches 6 meters tall and actually wants to try to fly. This is incredible. You have seen a creature bigger than an elephant. Can it fly? You have seen those huge things that stretch out and have an area of up to 20 meters. Can it fly? Unless it is an airplane, from a biological point of view, such a huge creature. How can it possibly fly? But there is a huge monster here, trying to violate human biological laws. He wants to fly. And it's not just about flying. This monster regards the sky as its own forbidden zone. He is a flying creature that dominates the sky. Even in such a huge situation, this giant mosquito still won't let his home court change anything. Just flying, that's just the basics. Snap, 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 snap. Supergiant mosquito. The huge pair of wings flapped slightly. Snap, 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 snap. The sound was huge, like a giant blower making noise. Not long after, his figure gradually floated up from the ground. Such a huge monster can actually fly. And getting up seems to be extremely easy. The giant mosquito's compound eyes were faintly shiny and flickering. He knew that his flying ability had not declined at all. What maintains his ability to fly is the most powerful and durable organ in his body, the two groups of flight muscles on his ventral side. Now, after mutation, they are as if made of steel. When needed, they can transfer huge power that exceeds the driving force into Jia Yan's wings, allowing him to fly higher and farther. Yes, now I still haven't lost the advantage of flexibility and speed. In other words, the advantage is even greater. Jia Yan's compound eyes flashed brighter. He looked at the ground below. Then, a pair of wings on the giant mosquito's ventral side began to flap wildly. Whoosh 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 whoosh. A deafening roar resounded powerfully in this world. Boom boom boom. Jia Yan only felt that he was on a roller coaster. The speed at which he was increasing his speed was so fast that even his own thoughts could hardly adapt to it. With a loud crash, his body was already flying upwards with his head raised, flying upwards at extremely fast speeds. The air around him was like a knife, scraping hard against his body. Boom boom boom. Amidst the huge sound, it took almost less than a second for the giant mosquito to break through the speed of sound. Keep flying. Carefree. Jia Yan felt that his strength had not yet been fully exerted, and his body had already reached the height of more than 2,000 meters, his previous height limit. In the past, he could go to any high place, but that was only something he could try occasionally. If he continued to fly high, he would be forced down by the low temperature and hypoxic environment at high altitude. But it's different now. There was almost no hesitation. The giant mosquito's even bigger body looked at the white clouds above its head rising into the sky. Boom 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 boom. It was like the explosion of a jet flying through the clouds, reflected in the giant mosquito's body. He couldn't even tell how fast his body was. Anyway, it just felt like those flying fighter jets didn't seem to be as fast as him. Moreover, this world seemed to be without any obstacles before his eyes. It seemed that he could come and go freely in the world. Powerful. This is flight, this is true freedom. Ha 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 ha. After being reborn for so long, this may be the first time that Jia Yan has laughed so happily in his heart. The long-term pressure of survival seemed to have disappeared, and he felt happy and joyful. The giant mosquito vaguely knew that he had reached an extreme level of strength now. No matter how strong he was, it would not be something within the scope of this earth. Unless there is something better, something that does not belong to this earth, it is possible for him to continue to become stronger. 5,000 meters. 6,000 meters. The temperature is extremely low. It didn't matter at the time. 7,000 meters. Still no problem. At this time, there are already arcs on the ground. It is like an arc is about to appear on the entire Earth's surface. This shows that the Earth is round. The big mosquito looked at the scenery obsessively. He continues to rise. Boom 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 boom. There seemed to be tiny ice crystals appearing near the wings of the giant mosquito. The coldness in the sky gradually began to invade, at least 30 degrees below zero. But the big mosquito is like a giant dragon swimming in the sky, not affected by temperature at all. Ha ha ha, Jia Yan was still smiling in his heart. The scenery of the earth was already like things that had shrunk several times. When he looked at the mountains and rivers below, they all looked like they were shrunk. He was so happy. The world is so big. But, it's also so small. The fun of flying is endless. Cool. Keep flying upward. Jia Yan felt that this was not his limit. 8,000 meters. 9,000 meters. 10,000 meters. It was estimated that he had reached a height that could only be reached by ordinary human aircraft. The figure of the big mosquito stopped steadily at this place. The big mosquito is watching, a view I have never seen before. He had never even flown on an airplane before, so it was indeed the first time for him to see the high-altitude scenery. 1,000-mile glance is an exaggeration, but a big mosquito would like to use this description. Beauty. It is very beautiful. The scenery on the ground, mountains, rivers, houses, and cities. It's like a beautiful picture. The low temperature around me has reached an exaggerated level of about 40 degrees below zero, but at this time, the effect of the mysterious metallic substance in the body of the big mosquito finally manifested itself. They were originally used as the shells of mysterious flying objects, but now they play a similar role in Jia Yan's body. At this time, the clot in the mosquito's body seemed to have created an isolated empty layer between the body and the clot defense. After this empty layer appeared, a thin metal substance appeared inside, but it was just a little bit. The metal material not only isolates the low temperature from the outside world, but also releases its own heat in the inward layer. It's simply a super hot and cold switch. This also shows how wonderful the structural material of the flying saucer is. So now the big mosquitoes no longer feel any cold after the initial coldness has passed. At this place of 10,000 meters, after stopping for a moment, Jia Yan looked at the sky. That higher blue land. Going up further, it's the stratosphere. No matter how high the scenery is, can you imagine it?